When it comes to kids with really challenging behaviors or emotional lives, one of the ways that I think about it in kind of a general way, whether it's the way I'm consulting at a school or one-on-one with a family, or even in the whole way that we practice at the Center for Connection, which I founded and am the executive director of, is to think from this whole way of constructing a lens, which is this: when a child's capacity, what they can handle, is a good match with the demands of what's happening in their world, then we tend to see kids who are resilient, who handle distress, who handle adversity, who have setbacks but get through them. But when kids have capacities that are significantly lower than the demands of the situation, and it's chronic, it's ongoing, it's really in that gap between what the world asks of them, whether that's in the classroom, the academic demands, or listening and following instructions demands, or engaging socially and reading the cues of peers, whatever it is, whatever those demands are, and their capacity are not a match and the capacity is low, it's in that gap that we really see that's where the both internalizing behaviors and emotions like shutting down, anxiety, depression, withdrawal, those kinds of things, or the externalizing behaviors, the acting out, the aggressiveness, oppositionality, tantruming, those kinds of things happen. So it's really because of that gap from my lens that causes a lot of the behaviors we see. If you know my work with Dan Siegel, you know we talk all the time about how behavior is communication. And a lot of these problematic behaviors and the concerns we have for our kids are really communicating, I don't have a way to feel successful navigating the demands of my day or these moments. So what we want to do is then look at those moments and become curious. First, let's figure out why the gap is there. The first thing we should ask is, are the demands appropriate? I've certainly seen kids who have significantly problematic behaviors because what was being asked of them was demands were too high for where they were developmentally. When, however, we see the demands that are age appropriate, and most other kids are able to work within that kind of demand system, but the child is really struggling, we have to start with curiosity. Let's find out why that gap is there. Because here's the problem with our society. Typically, we just are focused on the behaviors and we're trying to figure out how to get rid of the behaviors, how to incentivize the child to do better or to change their behavior. But if we don't get to the why, if we don't chase the why and get to the cause of those behaviors, we're just dealing with symptoms. We have to figure out why. And as Ross Greene says, kids do well when they can. So why can't they? Let's look at that. So this is where we start doing some evaluation and we start looking at the why. In many cases, there may be an underlying learning challenge. There may be a trauma that has happened. There may be a sensory processing situation or some other kind of challenge that hasn't yet been discovered. And in these cases, we want to provide the right kinds of intervention, of course. But from a whole perspective, the way I think about this in a generalized way is to say, okay, how do we then, since this is what's causing the problems, how do we build the child's capacity? And temporarily, we might even want to reduce some of the demands as we are doing that to catch them up, to get them up to that place where they're having success. The first place we have to start as we build kids' capacity, no matter what the reason is, no matter what we uncover in our curiosity, is to start with safe, positive relationships. When the grown-ups, the parents, the educators, the other mentors or other people in the child's lives, even the older siblings if possible, can show up in a way that allows them to feel safe and connected, that is the best tool we have for regulation. So once we start with safety and regulation through relationship, then the child becomes more receptive and more able to learn some of the skills that they may be, what Ross Greene calls lagging or lacking. So it's really in that skill building where we have to start with relationships and regulation. Okay. Once we are working on relationship and regulation, we can start building those skills. We may also want to, as I said, reduce the demands temporarily as we get them up to speed. Once they begin to have a better fit between the demands and their capacity and regulation is present, the behaviors often take care of themselves. This is really kind of just this overarching lens to rethink how we think about acting out and internalizing behaviors, where we begin, and how we start doing some problem solving to get that kid back to thriving.